Okay, so I'm going to show you how to make a basic strappy bikini bra, bikini top here. This is what it looks like. It's based on the type of bikini tops I would make for fitness models. Basically, the side strap here would connect to a longer strap that would hook to their hips. But just as a recreational suit, this is a cute option. It's more open in the sides, you know, whatever. This tutorial is going to be a generic kind of way to do this. Part of it's going to depend on the bra pattern you use. This just needs a bra cup pattern. So you might need to vary between the instructions you have and what I'm doing, just because some of these shapes are going to be different. You know, there's all kinds of areas. So this is basically if you have a cup pattern, whether it's a commercial pattern or if you have a bra cup that you like, you can take it apart and use it as a pattern. But this will give you the basic idea of how to assemble this sort of a bra. Okay, so what you're going to need, I've already bonded my outer pieces. I've cut my pieces for the outer cup out of spandex. I sprayed them with spray adhesive and bonded them to swimwear lining. You can bond it to another layer of spandex, or you can bond it to like a really thin neoprene or bra padding. That's especially great if you're going to add padding into your bra, which I'm not even going to get into in this tutorial. But the easiest way to do it is just swimsuit lining. So that's what we're going to do. So we've got our outer patterns, or outer pieces. We've got the lining pieces, which are basically the same. Again, that could vary based on your pattern. Your cup might have like just a more solid piece, whatever. I have pre-made some elastic strapping. I've got another video tutorial on how to do this, but basically you're going to need like 6 sections. I start with between 8 to 10 inches long for an extra small that we're doing. This is about, I think, a 34C cup that we're doing. And then I also cut 2 small pieces here. That's about 1 inch and 1.5 inches, 1 3/4 inches, would you say, Porter? Yeah, 1 3/4 inches. Okay, so you're going to need that. You're going to need underwire. Now this is the regular type of underwire. There are a few kinds you can get. You can get short, you can get long, where it's just going to be longer on one end. You can get a demi cup, which is half. Your bra pattern is going to determine what you use. So for this one, it's a full regular underwire. If you're using a pattern that has a demi cup or whatever, you're going to need to get wires that correspond to that. Okay, beyond that, you're going to need underwire channeling, which is this stuff. This is the kind I prefer. You can also buy this kind. It's like a heavier, almost foamy feel. This one doesn't stretch as much, and it's just straight, and I don't like it as much. So we're just going to toss it, whatever. That's for demonstrative purposes only. So this stuff here, there's a right and a wrong side. One side's kind of got this fuzzy feel to it, and the other side's kind of just an not unfinished, but like a flat, it almost feels like, I don't want to say nylon strapping because that sounds negative, but kind of, you know, like that feel. So you want this fuzzy side, that's going to be the right side. That's what you want against your skin. So anyway, and then you need elastic. So I use like 3/8 or 1/2 inch elastic. Usually this is 3/8 elastic. I've got a whole post on my blog about what kind of elastic to use, so you're going to want to check that out. Anyway, let's get started. Actually, before we get started, I forgot to mention the bra hooks. Now, for this type of bikini top, we use 2 different butterfly hooks, and these can be called swimsuit hooks or any number of other things. So one I use is about a 1 inch opening, and one is a 3/8. Is it 3/8 or 5/8? It's probably 5/8 actually. So you've got 2 different sizes. Sometimes you can get them to match, sometimes you can't. No one's going to be looking that close, so it doesn't really matter. The key is they're the type that snap together and lock. Okay, now let's get started. Okay, so I've got my outer cup and lining pieces laid out. You want to make sure that whatever pattern you're using, that you've got the top of it and the bottom where the underwire is going to be situated properly so that this will match up to this. So I've got that done for all of these. Put all your right sides facing up. If your swimwear lining has a right and wrong side, just have the right side facing up. It's going to be easier, and it's going to make sure that you don't end up with 2 of the exact same thing instead of mirror image. So I've got my serger set up to a narrow width. I should do a medium width. We're going to do a medium width of the stitch. And it's on like a 3 for the stitch. So it's like a relatively short stitch. It's what I use for seams. We'll be using that and a wide stitch when it comes to elastic. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the right sides of one of your bra cups and line them up. Actually, this will work better. I find it works a bit better if you have the rounded side on top. So just match up your seams on one side. You can pin if you want to. You can leave your pins behind because pins aren't my friends, so whatever. Anyway, that went poorly. So anyway, what you're going to do is as you feed this through your machine, you're going to want to keep the 2 edges lined up right at the knife there, but you're going to want to line this side up like this, and you're just going to pinch it together and just stretch enough to match everything. You don't want to do a big stretch, but you just want to basically ease everything together. And that's how your first bra cup is done. Now, the thing is that you can finish this off any way you want. You can do a top stitch to just sew the seam down to the top half of it. You can do like binding, whatever. Personally, I like just keeping it like this. It doesn't look as good just without a boob in it. But like once there's, you know, either padding or a boob, it fills it out nicely, and I don't like the stitching in general. That's totally a personal preference thing. Also, a lot of the time I make these bikinis, they're absolutely covered in rhinestones, so it doesn't even matter in that case if you're doing a posing suit. So now what you're going to do is you're going to do the exact same thing on this one. Again, rounded side up, match it together, and go. There you go. You've got a matched mirror image set. Now you're going to do the same for these. Now what you're going to want to do with these, because I know for me, I tend to get things mixed up, is once you start, just flip them so that they're the right sides together, and you know that's the way you're doing the seam. Because there's been times where I've just ended up with 2 exact, like so they both look like this instead of mirror image. So just start yourself out the right way. Okay, so you're going to do the exact same thing you just did, but with the lining. Now I'm using my serger, but as always, if you see my video or post on how to sew spandex without a serger, you can use a normal sewing machine for this. What you'd be doing is doing a straight stitch and then a zigzag around the edge. But again, just take a look at that video if you haven't seen how I do that. Now next what you're going to do is you're going to be assembling the cups. So you're going to take your outer cups right side down, you match your lining up so the seams are together. And then now when you serge this together, use a narrow, go as narrow as you can, and you can do a wide serge. Or sorry, narrow width, long stitch. You don't want to do a wide stitch on this one for a reason you'll realize later. If you're doing a normal sewing machine and not a serger, then you would just use a zigzag right on the edge here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to attach these 2 pieces together, lining to outer, along the bottom edge and along the top, just the top where your bikini strap's going to go. Again, you can pin them. I don't, but go ahead. And this you sew, you're not going to bother stretching. I like to, though, push the two seams so that they're facing the top piece of the cup, so facing up this way, just because then there's less likely for them to bind underneath. So for this, I actually ended up cutting that top a bit sloppy, so like I'll just go through and do that. I have the luxury of where I'm using a serger, like any mistakes can be fixed just with sewing over it, so I get lazy. Again, you're gonna do the same thing on this one, where I like to press the seams out, like not press the seams out, but fold the seams outward. I like to just stay sewing in that direction, so you're not trying to go against the flow, I guess. There you go, you got two lined bra cups. So now we're switching over to a regular sewing machine. Okay, so now what we're going to be doing is attaching all the straps just for the first round. So you're going to put one here, one somewhere between here and here. Now the thing is, and I'll get into this in the blog entry, is you can use multiple elastics. Like I only do the two. I've done it with 3. You're going to want to use a little bit more narrow if you're going to do that, because they're all going to bind together at the end into one bra hook, and you can't really get really, really wide ones, so you wouldn't want like 3 of these in a row. Anyway, and then we're going to attach the 2 with these 2 small ones. So to start, let's do the ones that are known. So the right side of your strapping, you're going to put an elastic width away from the bottom outer edge of your bra cup, if that makes sense, on where you serged, just like I'm showing you. And you're just going to straight stitch it within that serger line, because you don't want it outside that. And try to trim your threads often, because this project can get them all over the place. I just lost my power cord. Okay, so you're going to take another one of these. Now, if your straps have a directionality, which I don't recommend going for, but just keep in mind when you sew them here, it's going to be flipped up and it's going to be flipped out. And these are going to be the up and whatnot. It's so much easier if you can use something that doesn't have directionality. So anyways, again, right side facing down, center it over this upper edge and stitch it down. I'm going to be absolutely covered in thread by the time this is done, because I'm a slob with this. So then you're going to repeat those 2 on the other cup. And this one I do tend to do a little bit outside of where the serge is, just because I find that if you're a little further down the cup, once it's folded, you've got more elastic to hold that in. Again, it'll make more sense later. Again, right side facing down. An elastic's width, and you can do like a pinky finger width is a good way of measuring that, but just basically you're going to want to make sure that's just an elastic width away from the edge on the outer lower side. See, again, I've got threads everywhere. I'm bad about that. Okay, so you've got these basic ones down. Now this is the bottom strap. So basically what I tend to do is go anywhere between the halfway point and the outside. Usually if you divide this in half, right, you find your halfway point. I'll go like either halfway or like an inch within. So let's go like an inch within. You can see I'm very scientific about this. Okay, so now that you've got this one set, what you're going to want to do, because I wasn't very scientific about it, is use that to measure where you're going to put the other one. So line your bra cup over it. You get your straps lined up. You take your next strap. You just flip it in. So as you can see, that's where it's going to go. Just adjust it there. Again, you can pin it. I just prefer not to routinely and repeatedly stab myself as I'm working. That's why I like sewing with spandex. Part of it is that I don't have to use pins. So now what you've got is two bra straps with your snaps. Now with these, the elastic I use is very stretchy, and I'm using a very small mannequin because I would never fit this in a million years. I don't think this would go around my left thigh. So if you're making a larger size bra, obviously start with longer than 8 inches. I just didn't feel like making a ton of strapping when I don't have to. So now we've got two little pieces that I cut. As I said, one is about an inch, one's about an inch and a half. Again, you can kind of freestyle this. The big thing is when you attach this here, this is the center part of your bra. Now, if your elastic stretches a lot, you're going to want to go shorter. If it doesn't stretch that much, you can do kind of just whatever you want. If you use a very stretchy elastic and this is long, you're going to have your cups like a mile apart. So you don't necessarily want that. Again, this is very freestyle. So once you make a couple, and if you're doing this as a competition, I recommend making a practice one first just to get a feel for your fit and how long your straps are and where you want your straps and everything else. So this is just, as I said, basic idea. So in one of your bra cups, you're going to take the shorter one and you're going to place it an elastic width below the top edge. And I was really sloppy cutting that lining. Okay, so anyways, that's going to be an elastic width below the top edge of the bra cup. Now the second one I generally put for this bra pattern, and this is, like I said, it's going to vary between bra patterns, but I will place this one. I usually line it up against the seam here. So at the bottom edge of the strap is lined up over the seam. That's because I'm lazy and don't want to have to measure between these two and then have to measure on the other one. It's just a really simple guide. But the key to getting them to match up is to be very careful that your seam is right underneath what you're doing. I'm telling on myself all over the place in these videos, aren't I? So as you can see, that ends right over the seam there. And then that's your center part of the bra. So now you're going to place this face down on the other one. Flip these out and line this side up right over that seam. Like that. And you're going to stitch that. And then the last piece, I don't know why I was looking for that separate. I know it's attached to the bra here. Anyways, this last piece, once again, you're going to set so that it is an elastic width under that top edge. And then you'll have two parallel lines because you measured against the set seam. And that's what you've got so far. Next up, we're doing underwire channeling. Okay, so now we're going to set the underwire channeling. And honestly, we could have waited until these were done. I just like to get that all done at once. If you're worried about pieces moving around, then you can wait to do this. I would still just have this seam sewn together so you don't have lining flapping while you're doing this. Okay, so you're going to place your bra right side up. And you're going to take your underwire channeling. And now you would think you'd sew it like this so that it matches the curve. You're not. You're actually going to sew it facing the other way like this. I cut this so it's just a little bit longer when it's all stretched out. Now this stretches really well. Like it'll stretch straight, flat, right? So what you're going to do is with the fuzzy side up, you're going to sew starting at the edge here. Now, one thing I like to mention though is these can be a real pain to get your underwire in later. So if you want to just kind of like open it to start, that's good. Because sometimes it gets fussy later. So anyways, with your curve facing in the opposite direction and your fuzzy side up, line this up with this edge and this edge. And what you're going to do is straight stitch as close to this edge as you can. Be sure you stay on the underwire channeling at all points. You don't want to go too far into the channeling. The two seams you're going to do here on this edge and this edge, when you flip it, are going to determine how even your outer channel is going to be. So you're going to want to take your time, especially if this is your first time. And just like I said, just try and keep it just within this edge. Okay, so as you get going, you're going to stretch the underwire channeling and just hold it against the edge like this. And you're going to try not to stretch the bra piece as you do this. Because if you do that, you're going to have a very long underwire channel. And at all points, make sure everything is out from underneath your channeling. You're going to want to make sure that you sew over the stuff that you intend to, but nothing extra. So that I kind of messed up there, but that's not awful. It's just not going to look the neatest when I flip it. You can always go back and unstitch it. I don't, because I'm lazy and no one is going to see that. So the reason why you stitch it the other way from this is so that when it flips to the underside like this, it does hold that curve and you don't have excess channeling waving everywhere. So what I like to do, I think you're supposed to cut away some of this. My problem is once you flip this, any raw edges that aren't even are going to show up underneath your channel. So I like to just have that extra little bit of bulk there, just so it's nice and smooth here. That said, if you have anything like this where it is kind of bulky beyond that edge, you can trim it. It's easier to trim it now than it is later. So like see here, that strap kind of sticks up a little bit. So we'll trim that. But anyways, that is your first underwire channel. So now you're going to do the same thing on the other side. So again, you're doing your right side facing up, taking your underwire channeling with the curve going the opposite direction and lining it up, this time at that center front of the bra cup. And just any point where you run over one of your straps, try to keep that strap perpendicular to the edge that it was sewn to. So you don't want it to sew it like this because you might end up trapping a little bit of it. And then there again, at the edge there, I kind of, that one really doesn't matter because that gets flipped under. So anyways, there you are with your first round of underwire channeling. So next step, you're going to flip this. I guess I should see if there's anything I want to trim. Yeah, that's a little ugly. I'll trim that. And be very careful not to cut your underwire channeling when you do this, because you will have to redo everything, like recut the fabric and everything. So now the nice thing is where it's curved to the inside, it's already done half your work for you and folding over itself. One thing I should have mentioned is when you choose the color of your underwire channeling, usually it comes in 3 main colors. You can get black, white, or this beige. Generally speaking, I like to do the closest to the outer fabric just because you can kind of see it sometimes. When I made this one to shoot for the photos for the blog entry, so I like having a lot of contrast so you can see the seams I'm doing and see the difference in where the fabric is and everything like that. I ran out of the white, so I'm using beige for this one, but you can still see the difference between the channeling and the lining. When you're doing it for your own, you might want to use a lighter color like this your first couple times just so you can see where everything is if you have a hard time differentiating between that and the outer fabric. But in terms of actually making your good suit, you're going to want to match it as close to this outside as possible. The other thing you can do is dye it, but that's kind of annoying. So either match the outside or match your skin tone is the big thing to go. The only problem is I have only seen this in like a couple shades of beige and they're very, similar. It's too dark for me, obviously, and it's too light for a lot of people. Anything that's sold as skin tone generally doesn't come in any kind of like they're not made for people of color, and that's a shame. So then you're going to want to match the fabric more than anything. It's really for just one kind of very narrow range of skin tones. So now that I've ranted about that for way longer than I needed to, you're going to keep this folded over, and as you sew, you're going to use your left hand fingers to kind of pull this fabric away from that seam, because you want to keep this as tight against here as possible. So as you're sewing, you're going to make sure this isn't bunching up underneath there. You're also going to want to make sure that the seam is as close to that edge as possible. Maybe erring out to you have a little bit more fabric on top here like this. But you're not going to want to pull this super tight against here because, again, that's going to expose that. And you're not going to want to have a bunch of buckling. keep that all pulled as tight as possible. So, oh, and as far as the seam goes, this time you're sewing as close to this edge as possible. Be very careful you don't sew off of this, because you are going to have to go back and restitch that, because you don't want to have your underwire showing like that. So you can't really see what I'm doing, but I've got my thumb underneath here. I can use my other fingers to pull out. This one's actually pretty flat, so that's good. So it's going to be very easy, easy seam to sew. But just keep an eye that all the fabric under your actual seam is very flat. Okay, so now there you can see that is your underwire channel. And that's why the more evenly you can stick to each side as you're sewing this, the more even this will be. So now you're just going to do that on the other side. These threads everywhere. It's where they're multiplying when I'm not looking. And that is where we're at right now. So now we're switching over to the serger. And something I want to point out here is you can see that this has gone a little bit uneven now. That's because one of them stretched as I was sewing it a bit. So again, just try and be really even with this so you don't get that happen. Anyway, do as I say, not as I do. We're switching over to the serger now. Okay, so now we're sewing the elastic into the top part of the bra. This is what cuts against your boob in the center. So you can do your elastic kind of any length you want. I like to go a little bit shorter than the distance from the seam to this inner edge here. The tighter you have, the more secure it'll feel, but it'll also cut into your skin. So if you've got a bra style that has like a lot of boob hanging out on top, you're going to want to go a little bit looser with the elastic. And you can even just do the full, like regular, the whole length, instead of shorten. Again, that's just going to be all a matter of personal preference. Just loose, won't dig in that much. It will dig in a little bit because this will stretch over your boob. But yeah, anyway, so this is going to go on the wrong side. You're going to flip the strap up and hold this against it. So you're trapping the seam here underneath the elastic. And then as you start sewing, you're just going to whip this around and hold this to the edge, that inner edge, and just stitch along the edge. I'm going to serge it, but again, if you're doing this without a serger, you just use a zigzag right on the edge. And I like to have a little bit hanging over here just as a anchor later. So now when I do this, I'm holding this against this inner edge, and also so that it's just on the, so it matches up with that elastic there, because this is going to flip over it. So stretch, pull it to the edge, and serge. A little messy there. I think my serger is due for a tune-up. Hey, Porter.
Yeah?
My serger's due for a tune-up.
Got it.
I haven't used this. I haven't sewn in a year before I started doing these tutorials again, so it's been a little neglected. Okay, so this one, you're going to start at that inner edge. Again, you're going to line this up here and to the inner side of this. And then again, folding this strap up so that the seam comes down. I'm just going to hold this so a little bit extends beyond that. Stretch everything. And you're going to want to make sure you're sewing through both the lining edge and the outer cup edge. So you might need to straighten things out. And that is what you get. Now, the next step you can do one of two ways. Personally, I like to switch over to the other sewing machine and stitch this down. You can put the underwire in, as I'm going to show you, and then stitch this later. I just find it's easier to do it this way. So that's what we do. So for the next few steps, I've got my sewing machine set up with a fairly wide zigzag and about a medium length. So we're going to apply we're going to flip the elastic here. Now, generally speaking, as you might know from my other videos, I like to flip the elastic and stitch from the top. When it comes to doing underwire stuff, I usually end up doing it from the underside just so I can make sure that the little bits are contained, you know. But you can do it either way. Let's show you with the elastic side this way. So starting at one far end here, you're going to fold the elastic over that original shoulder seam thing, and you're going to zigzag on this raw edge. You don't want to be close to this edge because you'll get weird ruffling. And again, I've got a whole video on how to apply elastic, so you might want to watch that because it's way more in-depth. But basically, you're going to want to fold this and then make sure all excess fabric is tucked and pulled away from it. So as we get here, we're just going to flip this over that elastic. Now, I tend to just sew right across, so that there's one less set of thread to deal with. But I do like anchoring it here. Just stitch back this seam over and continue sewing. Now when you flip this over your underwire, you're going to want to pull it as tight as possible so it's even on both sides. You don't want to have one side that's like a bit looser because then you'll have a bump on one side. See, this is the point where my sewing machine starts throwing fits. Because we're like close enough to being done that I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and it's like, no. And then as you get to this end, again, you're just going to cover that initial shoulder seam and sew right over it. So that is where we're at right now. Next step is underwires. Now your underwires, at least this style, the regular style, generally are higher on one edge. So if you can see, if you're going to have it so it's kind of level, there's one side that's out more. That is the outside of your underwire, and then this is more for the center of it. So these ones are actually green tipped, so the tips are the side that goes towards the center of your bra. So because we've sealed off that side, and I should have shown, but see, that's how it looks here. You're going to go from the outer side. Remember I showed you how to get it? See here, you can see kind of where there's just a little channel, and you're going to feed that green tip, or whatever color your tip is, through there all the way, and make sure it goes all the way to your seam, because you're going to have some overage here. And that's good, because when you flip this down and stitch it, you don't want to stitch over the underwire, or you're going to be in for a bad time. So now again, there's that green tip. We're going to find this. It's always on the second one for me. I don't know why, but I always, the second one I do, I can never find. See, I thought I was being slick and like pre-opening, but literally every bra I do, I can never get the second half open. Holy crap, I actually got it in. Okay. So, but you're going to want to make sure you actually get it in the channeling and not between the channeling and the outside seam. If you're using like a bra foam, that's less of an issue, just because you're basically forming a channel between this and the other one. If you're just using lined spandex like this, you're going to see just the wire there. So you want to keep it in the channeling. So again, you're just going to force it through all the way to this center seam. Work it out, and you can see here it's lower, and that's good. So next step is we're just going to sew some elastic to these sides. So again, we're going to take that elastic I use. This side, it's less important to not bunch than it is on this side. So even if you've got like a lower kind of cut cup here, on the outside here, this generally can have a bit more gather. You know, the only thing it might pinch is like under your arm, but it's not usually an issue for these. So I measure off of the outer edge here to the top of the seam here. So that is the most you're going to want to do. So I'm going to cut that there. But when I cut the second one, I'm just going to trim them both like ½ an inch there, just so that there's a little bit of stretch going. Now we're switching back over to the serger. So what we're going to do here is just a very simple elastic application from this edge, again matching it up with that top edge of the elastic there, and the top edge of here. Now again, I like to sweep the seam so it's facing the top part of the cup. Just make sure I don't lose that elastic. And again, I'm serging with a fairly wide width and a longish stitch. For elastic application, you can just zigzag it. Make sure this strap doesn't get sucked underneath your seam. Ooh, I just sucked my elastic over. That's going to be ugly. I think the knife on my serger is kind of dull, so sometimes it does stuff now where it's like it just yanks it over like that instead of cuts it cleanly. Anyway, so again on this side, you're going to line this up so it's a little bit over this fold and start sewing there. And once it's caught there, just again make sure that your seam is kind of folded upwards. And then match your elastic down with that edge. And so. Yeah, see there again, I didn't want to get through that. So that's where you're at. And now we're switching back to the regular sewing machine for the duration of this project. Okay, so now we have the elastic pieces sewn in. This is where we're at with the project. So now we're going to sew this elastic down. Again, you can sew from the top like this if you want, but I'm just going to sew from the wrong side so I can show you, you know, wrapping this and closing that folded seam and whatnot. So when you start here, I like to actually start over here and just go diagonal, because the more seams over this part, the more secure that hold is going to be. And again, just fold this over, make sure all excess is pulled out from underneath it. And sew on that inner edge of the elastic. Make sure, once again, that that underwire is far away from your needle. And that this elastic is pulled tight against your underwire casing so that it all lines up with that strap. And that is your first finished bra cup. So we're just going to do the exact same thing on the other side. So pull this tight so it lines up with that strap. Pull this all tight. Get rid of excess thread. And there you go. So now the next part, we're going to measure off a mannequin. There's a little fuzz stuck there. But you can measure off yourself, have a friend help you out if you're going to do that. So what you're doing here is twofold. You're going to ensure the length of your shoulder straps here, and you're also going to measure the length of your side straps. So try to situate the underwire where you want it to go, and then just measure where you're comfortable. Now the problem with this one is the cup is actually bigger than the mannequin. So we're going to have to guesstimate that if there was a boob in there, where would we want the strap? So I'm just going to hold it back here and bring it there. That's actually a good length. I'm only going to cut off about 1 centimeter. So I'm going to keep that in mind for later and just make sure there's no twists. And I'm going to safety pin that together for now. Okay, without stabbing myself. I guarantee I'm oh, yep. I did it again too. This is why I don't like pins. I am far too clumsy. I'm a figure skater and I am clumsy. Anyway, so now that you've got that set up, you're going to place these where you want them underneath the boob, and you're going to stretch the bottom ones first. And just make sure, see, this one is riding up a little bit, so this is going to be a matter of preference of where you're going to want it. The big thing is, basically, I get it as tight as I want it, and then I cut it right kind of above my finger width. And I find that that gives me a good seam allowance while also understanding that the snap itself adds some width. So we'll space out. You want this just a little bit tighter than what you normally would. So this is going to be, I'm going to trim, well, I would trim there. Okay. Have you been using my scissors? I think that's a guilty silence. He's not saying anything. The cat, however, is saying, ow! No, he's not saying ow. I'm saying ow, but... Oh my god, how many times can I pin myself? Okay, you know what? We're going to safety pin that. I'm really bad at this. My husband's just laughing at me here. God, hang on. I'm making this far more awkward than it has to be. Sorry about that. Anyways, I've already determined where I want that length to be, so I don't need to like pin it in any particular manner at this point. It's just, this is going to make the next part easier. Oh man, my tendons do not like this. Okay, so now that is where we're at. Aim for more even with yours. If you start out with a certain measurement for each, then make sure you trim the same amount off of each strap, because if you don't have this centered on you, you still want the straps the same size. So now we're taking that upper strap, and when you pull this, so your bottom strap is basically going to go straight across, right? This upper strap is going to meet it. So make it, cut it to where you want it for it to fit to meet up with that one. You know, like don't measure here, measure here. So we're just going to say like that feels snug and good there. So I'm going to trim it where my fingers end. Like I'm pinching it a little bit tighter, and then I'm trimming where my fingers are. Now I'm not pinning that one because I am learning my lesson this time. And we're just going to unpin this other one. Jesus. Okay. Now we've determined that this top one is the length we need. So we're just going to unpin that. Put that aside. Now what I like to do is, just in case there was any kind of uneven when sewing this, I'm going to match these up. You know, so one is very slightly longer. I'm just going to trim that. These two turn out about perfect. These two, one's a little longer, so I'm just going to trim that. Now over time, so you can do these with the straps that loop around and have hooks and can be adjustable and everything. I generally make these just as performance bikinis for fitness models and stuff, so we don't do a lot of the adjustable stuff because that's going to be just another hook and whatnot that you can see. It's going to be added bulk from where it flips over. And it's honestly just a lot easier to alter it for the person when it's not being sold on a retail store rack and have to fit, any number of different sizes. So that's what we're doing. So now what we're doing is we're turning these two straps on the side. We're holding them flat together on the edge here. And we're just going to do an inch of zigzag to strap them together. You can overlap them slightly, but this is why I only do two straps when it's this size, because you're going to want them to fit in there. And as you can see, side by side, it doesn't fit in there. That's okay. I like it better when you're sewing something that's a little bit wider than this and it kind of bunches out, because otherwise this sticks out on the side. You'll see this in a second. But anyways, we're going to take both sides and we're just going to sew them together for like an inch. So I just zigzag them together and then stitch back on itself, and you see that's what you've got. Okay, and we're doing the same on the other side. And just make sure there's no twists in it at all when you do this, you want it to lay flat. So first off, we're sewing this bottom clip. So this is the larger of the two clips. When it snaps outwards like this, and the outside looks like a little flower in this case, sort of. You get like heart-shaped ones, some that look a little bit more like a butterfly, but the key is it snaps outward like this for this installation. The other side, if you can see, doesn't look as pretty. That's intended to be on the inside of the body here. So you're going to feed this through. Just like that. And then while you have it snapped, I like to feed the other side through just so you make sure everything's facing the right way, matches up. I'm a lot better at this when I'm not on camera. But also in my defense, this is the second underwire bra I've made in like 15 years. Like the one I made yesterday for the blog post was the first I've made in a very long time. So it's been at least 10 years. So as you can see, that's going to lay flat. There's no twists. Everything matches up. So you can unsnap it there because that's on there securely. Now what I was saying earlier is you see where there's more bulk here than there was in the hole? That covers that outside back corner of that really well. So then you just see the snap, not the sides. It's just a personal pet peeve of mine when this part of the snap is jutting out, you know? So anyways, you are going to fold this back. I like to sew from the top this time. If you have any fuzz, and you generally will end up with some fuzz after you feed that through, just trim it all because you don't want that getting caught in anything. And you flip this back and you're just going to stitch it back a couple times this way. You can use a straight stitch, you can use a zigzag. Just be even and thorough. And I like to do several seams back and forth just to make sure that is set, because no one wants their bra strap coming undone. So sometimes it doesn't like to reverse through all that, so I'll just flip it around. So we'll just do the two for here. But the big thing I like to mention is just make sure you've got your edges like underneath the elastic so they're not hanging out. So there's the first one. And again, see there's a little fuzz. I'm just going to trim that. You can also zigzag or serge this. And honestly, when I'm doing it for orders, I'll zigzag it first just to make sure that no fuzz develops. Okay, and there we've got that. And clearly I've got thread everywhere, just like I said was going to happen. And now here is that second snap. So again, like the other one, which way is this snapping? Did I do this backwards? Oh, here it is. Okay. This one is really tight. I might need to grab another one. That's I mean, it's secure, so it's got that going for it. Anyways, so what we're going to do with this one is, again, the right side has kind of like a little sun design on this. I don't know if you can see that, but that's to designate where the right side is. Unlike this one, I want to sew this one in backwards, like this. Now, the thing of this is generally speaking, this will crack open over your finger, and that's how you tell where the right side is, right? But the thing is, just like how it'll crack open over your finger, it can also crack open over the prominent vertebra in your neck. So if you've got this as a halter, as you are, that is right around the area where that could just crack open. So if you sew it in backward, that's not going to happen. So it's not as pretty, but no one's going to see that. So whatever. Security over style. So again, we're just feeding those edges through. So as you can see, that's right side. We've got the right side of both straps. It's lined up. There's no twists. And we've got it so it's right, it's opening backwards. Just like we want it. I mean, you can sew it in right side out if you're stuck with that, but like I do not recommend it. Trim the fuzz. And again, we're just gonna flip back about the same distance here. So it's like ½ an inch, you know? And you're just gonna stitch this down. Now see here, that opening, that's about as narrow as we can really get in this, but see how it bulges out like that? That's exactly what I was avoiding by having a wider amount of strapping to go into a more narrow opening. Same on the other side. Work this back a bit so you only have ½ an inch. And okay. So when you do that up, so go through and just cut all your little threads, but there you have it, your strappy bikini bra.